From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
Mainly whenever you see things going on that are affecting their behavior, it really shows that sometimes their home life has got a lot more going on than something happening at school.
A new program helping kids inside and outside the classroom. Recycling manure using an unusual source.
The science that went into it focused not just on how to improve your emissions, but how to do it in a way that is viable for the business.
Making progress or a long way to go. Trade talks between the U.S. and China about to get underway again.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Chinese delegation is expected to leave today for the U.S. They're coming to Washington for another round of trade talks. The Chinese group will be led again by Vice Premier Liu He. These meetings come on the heels of a U.S. delegation meeting with Chinese counterparts last week in Beijing. Now, President Trump calling those talks, quote, very productive. Others saying much work remains. Our Washington sources say both sides are working toward a memorandum of understanding, but that is not the same as a framework agreement that President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping can work on. Now, some observers say the two leaders will take up and resolve remaining issues when they meet at an unspecified date and location. The U.S. is scheduled to raise import taxes on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods at the beginning of March, but the president says he's considering extending that deadline. Happening right now, the public comment period for the new Waters of the U.S. rule is underway. The Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers pushing the official rule to the Federal Register in the second step in the process. Now, under the proposal, traditional navigable waterways will remain federally regulated, but tributaries, ditches, lakes, ponds, and wetlands will only be federally regulated if they pour into a traditional navigable waterway in a typical year. Ephemeral streams, those that only run in a big rain event, are excluded. The new WOTUS rule specifically excludes groundwater, prior converted cropland, water control features, and fields like cranberry bogs flooded for harvest. National Cattlemen's Beef Association representatives saying being so close to finalizing WOTUS is a relief.
When it comes to WOTUS, we are getting very close to finalizing this rule, and the rule does two things. It protects our water sources, protects our waterways, but it does so by protecting private property rights. And that is a key difference from what we saw with the 2015 Obama rule. We also have to keep in mind it's not just that 2015 rule. We've been dealing with this via legislation in Congress for well over a decade now.
The public comment period ends February 28th. January was one for the record books when it comes to the U.S. soybean crush. Reuters reporting it was the fourth largest on record and the biggest ever for the first month of the year. The National Oilseed Processors Association says it processed 171.6 million bushels of soybeans last month. That's down slightly from December, but well ahead of what was crushed last January. Soybean oil stocks came in at 1.5 billion pounds. Soy meal exports jumped to 905,000 tons.
The National Dairy Farm Program strives to create a culture of continuous improvement for the entire dairy industry. For more information, visit nationaldairyfarm.com.
Here are some words you may not have associated together: manure and clean water. Well, one dairy in Washington state is turning manure into water using worms. Yes, worms. And it's creating up to 200,000 gallons of water a day. AgDay's Betsy Jiven traveled to an award-winning dairy to see how they won that sustainability honor.
Big worms, little worms, eggs.
It's a sight you don't see every day, but one Austin Allred created. A worm bed, 2 acres of it, on Royal Dairy in Royal City, Washington.
The worms are more than a couple feet down. They're hard to find and they bunch up when it gets cold.
A working bed helping turn manure into irrigation water, an idea from a farm show now changing the way he operates.
My last month's test was about 80% reduction in nitrogen, phosphorus, and total suspended solids.
Yet he wanted to capitalize on the nutrients from the cow to the field full circle, while being environmentally friendly. That's why he got involved in the farm program, created by the National Milk Producers Federation with the help of Dairy Management Incorporated, The program has several pillars, from animal husbandry to workforce development, including environmental stewardship.
Is getting better. Now that we have the environmental stewardship tool, we have a way to actually measure that.
The voluntary environmental stewardship side of the program was developed in 2017. It's used by 20 cooperatives and processors in the U.S., who represent approximately 60% of the U.S. milk supply. It's all designed to help the environment and continue to lower greenhouse gas emissions.
Someone can know where do they fit in terms of specifically manure management emissions. Are they higher or lower than the peers in their area? And if they're higher, maybe that's an opportunity for improvement.
The model then generates greenhouse gas emission estimates.
The science that went into it focused not just on how to improve your emissions, but how to do it in a way that is viable for the business.
How much improvement the changes to your operation have done in terms of greenhouse gas emissions.
This year will be the most drastic improvement because of
For dairies like Allred, that's visits from trained evaluators in the farm program, looking at those models to see what could potentially be improved.
There are some manure technologies currently that are not included in the module that will be included in the 2019 module update, and so then we'll continue to evaluate and move forward.
Allred likes the momentum, first designing feed rations based on the cow and its job.
Right in front of us, this purple stuff is grape pumice. This is a byproduct of wine.
Soon that manure flows through 2 separation systems, which sorts out the solids twice. The solids go to compost as the tea water makes its way to the infamous worm bed.
The worms are moving around, keeping the channels open so that the water can continue to permeate through so it doesn't get saturated.
As dirty water runs through sprinklers, it travels through 5 feet of bedding.
And then within 4 hours, that water permeates through these worm beds and comes out the bottom clean.
Worms, not always seen on a dairy, but one way Allred hopes to improve the environment for the future. Reporting in Royal City, Washington, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Now, the worms are useful for many reasons. Allred says the worms eat a lot of the nutrients, including wood chips. He harvests the worm castings, and it then becomes a fertilizer. Having an extra set of hands on the farm is always a good thing. Meteorologist David Harker has more in today's Crop Comments. David.
Lots of babies on the farm right now, and since we're in calving season and everyone is pitching in to help, especially the little ones, we just love this photo shared by Matt Ivy of Blackwater, Missouri. He posted this photo on Twitter with the caption, "Teamwork makes the dream work." A moment this little girl probably won't forget. Just so adorable. Let's go ahead and take a look at the wind speed forecast, and you'll find this next system making its way out of the deep south is going to provide some high wind and eventually some high precipitation. This is going to stretch not only from South Texas, but stretching all the way to the Great Lakes in the Northeast. Rain and snow to follow as well. We're going to have more on this forecast coming up, but now here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV, U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Hey, did you know this is National FFA Week? And this year the women are receiving extra attention. It marks the 50th anniversary since women gained full membership. 1969 marked the very first year women could officially be members of the National FFA organization. However, the push for female leadership began much earlier, all the way back in 1935. Now, during that gap, state and local chapters brought in female members at different levels. Some enrolled in ag education classes were identified as social ambassadors for the chapters, but were not allowed to become official members. One Iowa farmer, April Himmis, was the first woman to go through all 4 years of FFA at her high school.
Anything's possible, and that's the great thing that FFA gives you is especially the leadership and knowing how to speak to people, because that's a big part of everything, communicating and learning and leadership.
Now, nearly half of all FFA members are women and hold roughly 50% of the state leadership positions. National FFA Week runs through the 23rd. What did we learn from last year's growing season and market conditions that could carry over this year? We get some analysis next. And changing the dialogue with problem students from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. That's ahead in the country. The markets were closed Monday for President's Day, but last week ended with a flurry of activity as farm country begins to prepare for another planting season. Tyne Morgan picks up the conversation in today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Joe Vaklovic of Standard Grain. Joe, when we look at the seasonalities of crop prices right now, are kind of prices, it's been this stagnant range-bound price range, but have they been kind of the seasonal trends that you see every year?
There are a lot of things in the markets that have been abnormal the last year or so. I mean, this trade war with China is definitely abnormal. It's something we haven't seen before. The fact that the Chinese demand base for soybeans just kind of fell off the face of the earth is not normal. But actually what happened in 2018, in the 2018 calendar year from a seasonal standpoint, was very normal. We kind of had some higher prices in the spring. We got the acres planted, the weather looked good, and the market sold off. And they sold off right up until harvest. We bottomed out in the corn market and in the soybean market in mid-September, which is close enough to that October 1st, average within a couple of weeks, essentially. And then we rallied out of that. The beans rallied $1, the corn put, 30 cents on. So it hasn't been totally abnormal from a seasonal standpoint at all. Now, this time of year, what typically happens during the first part of the calendar year is that we'll start to build in a little bit of weather premium for the upcoming growing season. That would be normal. And we haven't really seen a whole lot of that yet. We haven't seen a whole lot of downside either. So if you were to assume that we could maybe build a little bit of premium into the corn and soybean markets ahead of planting, that would be actually pretty normal from a seasonal standpoint.
So do you think that could happen? Considering everything else we have right now, do you think we'll build a premium in this market?
I do. I think it's very possible. The weather is still the biggest driver of prices. Despite all the headlines regarding China, despite all of the demand woes that we have in some of these markets, weather is still and is always going to be the biggest driver of grain prices. So we still need to put big crops out. We really can't tolerate big yield discrepancies in the U.S. So until we know more about what's coming this year, I don't necessarily see a ton of downside in these markets.
Okay, so if we see this premium built in real quick, is it something that producers should take advantage of? Or are you saying hold off a little bit on corn, let's say, because there's maybe some opportunity this summer?
Historically, over the years, it has paid to make sales before planting. Okay. That's been historically what pays. Could you run into a year where you get a July weather scare and that's when you see your calendar year? That's possible, but that's not the rule.
All right, thank you so much. Well, let's take a quick break and then we'll have a check of weather right here on AgDay.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438. You could win a 2019 John Deere Gator. No purchase necessary. Visit ValentFullyLoaded.com for details and official rules.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist David Harker looking at the weather map. And David, it looks like another day of kind of mixed weather depending on where you are.
Oh, absolutely. We've got snow showers in the Four Corners region, and then in the deep south in Texas, we've got another system brewing, providing more rain and eventually snow. You'll notice that high pressure in the Great Lakes. That's not going to stick around for too long as this low pressure system moves up through central Texas, up into Missouri, where you'll see rain showers and snow showers throughout the rest of today. As we transition in time for the daytime Wednesday, watch the snow. It stretches up into the Great Plains, into Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois, and even stretches all the way out to the eastern seaboard. You notice in Virginia, as well as Maryland, dealing with the snow. That area of orange, that's going to signify that wintry mix and eventually some freezing rain in parts of central Indiana, central Ohio. This low quickly moves off to the north and to the east. Another clipper system making its way out of Canada, and you'll notice some of the snow in the higher elevations out west. Let's take a look at precipitation estimates. First with the rain showers, you'll notice it's all on the north side of this low pressure system, or south side rather, of the warm front. It's heavy rain. We're talking 4 to 5+ inches of rain there along the Mississippi River, stretching in through Tennessee and the upper Appalachian Mountains. When you factor in snow showers, well, it doesn't look all that good on the north side of this either. You were talking at least 8 to 12 inches of snow across portions of Iowa and stretching out to the eastern seaboard as well. Let's talk temperatures throughout the afternoon hours. A lot of the warmth still down to the south, 80s down in southern Florida, 50s stretching into the extreme southwestern portion of the United States, while it's single digits up in the Dakotas. As we transition to the overnight hours and move into tomorrow morning, we find that the temperatures are still cold, single digits in Rapid City, as well as 10 degrees in Billings, while we have the 70s down in New Orleans and stretching into portions of the southern portion of the states. Now, the jet stream map does show more of a zonal flow where the warmth stays to the south, as we just mentioned, and the colder air surging out west. This is what's going to cause a lot of problems with snow in the upper mountainous region up in there in the Rocky Mountains. Hopefully we get some more warmth to get rid of that big snow system, which, by the way, is going to follow this jet stream something you're going to see more of for the Great Lakes as well as the extreme Northeast. All in all, we can only hope for more calm weather, as some portions of the United States seeing rain where it doesn't need to be seen there in the south, and maybe a little bit more out west. Let's take a look at some conditions near you. We take a look at McFarland, California, 52 with some morning frost out there, sunshine in the afternoon. Kirbyville, Texas, showers and thunderstorms. Some of that rain could be heavy with 61. And up in Maine, Mapleton, Maine, we've got a high of 12 degrees.
The dairy industry continues to be hit hard financially. Up next, the latest economic update from the Federal Reserve, and later, Charles Denny.
ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, such as abuse or trauma. UT Extension trains Tennessee teachers to recognize signs of this problem. That story coming up on AgDay.
AgDay, brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
There's more evidence of the financial stress facing dairy farms. It's being detailed in this month's Ag letter from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. It states deteriorating agricultural credit conditions continued to affect the district in the fourth quarter. It went on to say that repayment rates on non-real estate farm loans decreased in the quarter and rates of loan renewals and extensions increased. A Wisconsin banker says dairy is the most stressed sector, saying financial stress and the tough January weather has many farmers ready to sell out. Adding to this, milk and livestock prices in general were down 7%. The cost of hauling milk continues to rise. The latest numbers show milk hauling rates for northern states rose by more than a third in 2018. That's compared with 2017. This comes from the Upper Midwest Federal Milk Marketing Order. The weighted average hauling charge in the Upper Midwest was about 28 cents per hundred, but costs range from 16 to 75 depending on how much a farm is shipping. When we come back, a program to help kids through difficult times. Details in the country.
AgDay, brought to you by ESN Smart Nitrogen, the smartest way to reduce nitrogen losses to wet soil, hot, dry conditions, or microbial attacks in standing water. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com. Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
A difficult home life or past trauma for a child can impact their ability to perform in school and even hinder their brain development. Family experts with University of Tennessee Extension are working with teachers to help them recognize signs of what's called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Charles Denny has more on training designed to help a child grow.
Building an artistic interpretation of a young brain using pipe cleaners and crafts. It's an exercise in this teacher's workshop, but not every table has an equal selection of materials. It represents how some students are better equipped than others to handle stress, something pre-K teacher Derek Vestal sees from time to time.
Mainly whenever you see things going on that are affecting their behavior, it really shows that sometimes their home life has got a lot more going on than something happening at school.
The training was Building Strong Brains, Tennessee's ACEs initiative, with ACEs standing for Adverse Childhood Experiences, taught here by UT Extension. Experts know teachers have tough jobs, and this equips them to be more effective with their kids.
And so what I hope they get out of this training is what are ACEs, how does that impact the students that they're working with, and now where do we go from here? What are some practical tools and strategies that they can use in the classroom to help make students equipped to learn?
Sarah Kite of McMinn County talked about recognizing behavior in children which might signal an ACEs situation.
So the ACEs training has really helped the teachers, the parents, the families understand that some kids come in, they're kind of problem children, they get into trouble, but it's shifting the mindset of not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you.
There's an emotional, mental, and physical impact from adverse childhood experiences. Experts say past trauma, especially something that happens at an early age, can hinder a child's brain development. Teachers know that if not dealt with, a past negative experience can make it tough for a child to handle a classroom setting and succeed academically.
Their trauma at home can be something as simple as mom and dad have been together and then just mom up and leaves. And they developmentally do not know how to process that.
And for children to grow and learn, it's good when teachers know how the past can impact the present. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.